Hello and welcome to the Boat Shed. My name is John and this is my wife Bridget.
And this is our boat, Antidote.
Now I'm an engineer and a sailor with the dream of fixing up this old boat to go sailing around the world.
And I am not a sailor yet. I'm at law school.
Antidote is a 1989 Liberty 458 and she is the last of 31 hulls built for Liberty yachts in the 1980s.
So while there's only 31 of these boats, you can find them all over the world.
So they've enjoyed a long reputation as safe and seaworthy vessels.
These boats are also super beautiful and comfortable on the inside.
That's right, the interior of this boat is really first class. The craftsmanship is second to none.
So why are we sitting here in the driveway still? Because when we first talked about this, the dream was to go around the world.
Well, fair enough, that is the dream, but of course there's just a lot of work to do. And it really started even when we were still in the marina, just getting the boat home.
Do I hear a montage?
You might hear a montage. I do have something ready.
In fast motion where you make old stuff new? Okay, good, because those are way more satisfying. Show them.
Oh yeah, okay. All of that work is really just the very tip of the iceberg. Many of these old Liberties, including this one, have crossed oceans all around the world. But like all things, time takes its toll and the ocean is a particularly cruel environment, and many of Antidote's systems and structures are wearing out and in need of major repair. So Antidote won't be visiting any faraway anchorages until she has some of this work addressed. Now, I wanted to do the restoration work on Antidote myself, really get in and enjoy the process of bringing this boat back from where she was. So we decided to put her on the driveway. And about a year after meeting her for the very first time, she came to rest here about a stone's throw away from our back door. For almost a full year, she sat here solemnly as I worked to tie up some other loose ends with the hopes of making more time for this project. While it sat here, I occasionally was able to find time for some odd jobs like decommissioning piles and piles of old abandoned electrical wire, removing hundreds of pounds of gear and spare parts from the boat's many storage lockers, and finally decommissioning an ancient Crosby refrigerator system that hadn't worked in who knows how long, that consisted of a 40 amp DC motor, a 70-pound cast iron compressor, 2 holding plates, collectively weighing about 270 pounds. This thing dimmed the lights every time you turned it on, and I'm very happy to be rid of it. I'm looking forward to building a more modern refrigeration system for the boat. Last year, in early October, I started the design and construction of this shed. And now I wish that I took more video of that process for you, because that is a story in itself. But I started to notice all the leaves turning orange and formations of birds flying south for the winter, and I started to realize that I had to act quickly if I wanted to get this boat covered before another winter. So unfortunately, the filming gave way to frantic action, and we got this shed put up in a couple of weeks. The shed is based on a Gothic arch design that you can find on the LSU agricultural website, and the curved beams are all made up of 20-foot long 2x4s that are split in half on the table saw, planed down to about 5/8 of an inch, and then assembled on a big wooden jig that I laid out in my garage with these 6-inch wood webs. Everything was glued and screwed together, and it provides an amazingly strong structure. The whole thing is wrapped in 7mm marine shrink wrap, and it's turned out to be really strong and super resilient in the high winds that we occasionally get here, although it does tend to get a little warm in here in the peak of the summer. So far it's holding up really well, although we have had some issues with birds landing on it and poking holes in it with their sharp talons, but I think we've been able to remedy that problem recently. Having the boat covered really helps around here in the Pacific Northwest. We get a lot of rain, so I'm hoping that this will help me to get a lot more accomplished throughout the year. Since getting this boat under cover, our biggest focus has been on addressing these old decks. Now maybe you've heard the expression leaky tiki. Well, when this boat was built, it had to have solid wood teak decks. Now, the problem with these was they were screwed from the top. These decks, after 15-20 years, need a ton of work to maintain, if they're even serviceable at all. And unfortunately, on Antidote, these decks were way too far gone. I decided to try to remove the teak deck in individual strips of wood. I wanted to preserve it if I could. Maybe I'll do something with it. If you have any ideas, put it in the comments below. Firewood is one popular choice that I've heard before already. I think I can do better than that. I had to remove a lot of screws, and you gotta take them out one way or the other. Now, there was a ton of them, and if you have any ideas how many there were, you can go ahead and put that in the comments below. I'll give you a hint, it was more than 500 and less than 5,000. The teak deck came off surprisingly easily. I don't know if that's good or bad, but once we had it off, we were able to do a little bit more moisture testing on the deck below. We expected to find some rotten wood inside the fiberglass core underneath these old teak decks. Once we had all the deck fills and all the other hardware removed from the deck, we were able to pull up the teak and find out. Replacing the decks in this boat is a huge undertaking, probably the most labor-intensive part of this whole refit journey. But I'm excited about the prospect of having a brand new deck on this boat that's going to be strong, lightweight, waterproof. I'm really excited about that. The work on deck so far has been to cut the top skin fiberglass open to expose large sections of the fiberglass core. Now, so far, all I have found is saturated, wet wood. Balsa and plywood, wet, wet, wet. Once all of that is removed, we can start preparing the bottom skin to receive new core. My plan is to replace the core with materials that are not subject to rot. I'm selecting a variety of Divinycell PVC foam. I have some Coosa 26-pound foam boards going in certain areas where I want a little additional strength and stiffness. G10 blocks will be installed in areas where I know there's heavily loaded fittings and especially high compression loads, like under the staysail fitting, for example. Now, I've decided to try my hand here at vacuum bagging to install all of this. I like the way that a vacuum can provide a lot of very even pressure without the need for excessive bracing from down below. On a roughly 1 square yard section of foam that I'll be holding down with vacuum at around 23 inches of mercury, that's over 10,000 pounds of force equivalent. So it's like having 2 pickup trucks on top of the core material on a 1 square yard section. So you get a lot of clamping force without actually subjecting high downward loads onto the part. I'm happy to say that so far this plan is working out pretty well, and I have a few sections already replaced. In parallel with all this work, I also decided to remove the cap rails on the boat. These were all the original teak, and they were in varying degrees of disrepair, all the way from acceptable down to firewood. Removing many of the seized fasteners that held this cap rail on, as well as some of the sail tracks that were bolted through the cap rail, was a bit of a challenge. Eventually, all the bolts managed to break free with varying degrees of force and success.
So I think a lot of people are kind of wondering, like, why are we doing these two crazy things at the same time? Big boat refit, also law school.
Right, well, for me, I was working at the same job for 15 years, and I was just feeling depressed, honestly. I was not really living the life that I wanted to be living, and I would get these quarterly magazines that had these reports of people and when they had passed away or when they had retired, and I was alarmed by how many people had passed away so shortly after being retired.
Yeah, and right before COVID, my mom passed away. She had terminal cancer. They gave her 6 months to a year, and she lasted 5.5 years.
Right, well, that was just another thing that kind of enforced in me this idea that this conventional wisdom of going on a big boat trip when you retire is maybe not going to be reliable. So
we were like, we need to do it now.
Exactly.
Let's do it all now.
Let's do it now.
So I guess the question is, like, why not just buy a boat and just sail it around the world?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is by far the most difficult way to get to blue water.
You're good at the difficult.
Yeah, there's always a harder way.
It's an engineer thing.
But, this is part of my dream. And to see Antidote as a boat that was this glorious, ocean crossing boat now tied to a dock as a liveaboard, and it in need of restoration, that's how I feel. So this restoration project isn't really just about fixing up an old boat. It's really restoring for both of us, the boat and for me, and our relationship.
And I can already see that happening.
Exactly. So I think that's really cool. So if you're watching these videos, we're going to be doing a lot of fun boat work. I hope you find it all interesting. We wanted to give you a little backstory on who we are and why we're doing this.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. It was really nice to meet you.
Absolutely, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video. If you have, it would mean so much to us if you'd hit that like button for us. It really does help out. And you can subscribe if you'd like to stick around for more of this refit. If you want to get caught up from the very beginning and you're new to our channel, then we'll put a link to that video right here. And so we'll hope to see you around. Cheers.
It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna sneeze.
Just don't get the camera wet.
What should I do with my arm? I feel like we're in a Sears catalog.
Totally, that's a glamour shot right there.
I feel like we're in a Wes Anderson movie.